Howdy YouTube, and welcome to this video where I will sort of break down and discuss all of the objectives in Twilight Imperium, as well as offer my strategies and insights into scoring objectives in order to win the game. So we're going to start with the stage 1 objectives, then go to stage 2, and finally talk about the secret objectives. And I will mention the Imperial strategy card a little bit in this video as well as politics. But anyway, let's begin. So there are 10 stage 1 and 10 stage 2 objectives in total. And each game, there's 5 stage 1 and 5 stage 2 objectives. If you are playing to 10 points, then likely you'll see 2 or maybe 3 stage 2 objectives. If you're playing to 14 points, you will likely see, pretty much all of them. 4 or 5 you should expect to see in a 14-point game. Anyway, let's group these. Let's group these into spend objectives, control objectives, and tech objectives. So let's do this really quickly. It's the same sort of split for stage 1 and stage 2. So you've got 4 spend objectives. Yep, there we go. In fact, I'll put it this way. So you got go across 4 spend objectives, 2 tech objectives, and 4 sort of, I'll call it control objectives. In stage 2, the only real difference here is that this one, instead of having 2 ships adjacent to Mechatol Rex, it becomes Conquer the Weak, which is taking someone's home system. The rest of these are pretty much the same, otherwise, with higher requirements obviously, but yes. So looking at this, of the 5 agendas that get revealed in stage 1 and stage 2, following probability, you should expect to see 2 spend objectives, 2 control objectives, and 1 tech objective in stage 1 and stage 2. That's what you should be expecting. And what this means is you want to play a race that either leans into spending or leans into controlling territory. If you want to have the most success in Twilight Imperium, this is generally what you want to go for. You either want to play a race that specializes in spending stuff or specializes in controlling territory, or some combination thereof. Just because of pure probability, there's just not that many tech objectives in the publics anyway. That's my point. We'll get to the secrets in a bit, but yes. Okay, so in the beginning of the game, it's generally not a good idea to go for spend objectives on the first couple of turns. The reason for this is you want to spend the first few turns sort of building up your presence. And if you are spending to score points early, you're not using those points to build your position. And if you have a weak position in the early game, it's likely someone will exploit you. And then you will have a bigger problem than trying to score points, and that will be trying to defend yourself. And that's not the position you want to be in. I would say in a 10-point game, by turn 3, you should be looking to score points. And in a 14-point game, you can probably wait even until turn 5 to start scoring points. It's what I've done a couple of times, and I've managed to make, come back from behind victories. But yeah, so in a 10-point game, by turn 3 or maybe turn 4 at the absolute latest, you want to be scoring. But probably by turn 3. And if there's spend objectives, you don't want to score them straight away. The control objectives are fine, because you don't have to spend anything. You just have to, maintain your strategic positions. So by all means, score these early if you manage to, set yourself up for them. And attack objectives as well. If you can get these early, yeah, by all means, go ahead and do that. But the spend ones, if it's just a bunch of spend objectives that are coming out in the early game, you should hold off. Hold off for a few turns, solidify your position, and then start scoring the points when you are more stable on the board. Another thing to say about the tech objectives is once you have reached the requirements for these, no one can take that away from you. Whereas with all these other ones, people can, okay, maybe not the trade good ones, and maybe not so much the lead from the front, not so much spending the tokens. There's one action card which can take a token away from you, which could prevent you from scoring this. But trade goods are yours, unless an agenda that one agenda comes up which wipes out your trade goods. But otherwise, these two are pretty safe as well. You're pretty safe to score these whenever you want. So I'm going to just move these down here. These 4, these 2 you're guaranteed you're safe to score whenever you want. And these 2 you are pretty safe to score whenever you want. But these other 6, not so much. People can, take your planets, which takes away your influence and resources. People can attack your ships elsewhere so that you lose your strategic positions in order to score these. These 6 up here are, they're not guaranteed by any stretch. So if you can score those 6, then not so much these 2 in the early game, but in the mid game, if you're in a position to score these 6, then you should go for these first before you go for these ones down here. It's basically what I'm trying to say. Okay, so that's stage 1 done, and stage 2. Honestly, stage 2 is pretty much the same as stage 1. So I don't actually think I will bother bringing out the. Well, I'll do it anyway. Go on then, for the sake of completeness. Why not? Why not? I'll be quick. Because some of the stage 2 objectives are just borderline. I'm not gonna say impossible, but very, very difficult to do. Like this, for example, 5 tech specialty planets is really hard to do. Same with this. All the control objectives in stage 2 are really hard to do. In stage 2, you are far more likely to go for spend objectives. They just tend to be a bit easier to do. The control objectives in stage 2 are really difficult to pull off. Yeah, okay, that's it there. Like, this is ridiculous. 5 tech specialty planets. Like, I think I've seen that scored once or something. Somehow. 6 planets of the same planet trait, again, really hard to pull off unless you get lucky. These 2, you need a degree of luck, depending on the board positioning. Controlling 11 planets is a little bit easier, I think, and a little bit more but even so, really hard to pull off. Like, yeah. Of all the control objectives, I think the one that's most likely to be successful is to conquer the weak, taking someone's home system. And even then, if people, and this is just, sloppiness on other people's parts. And, I've been sloppy as well. Definitely been some games where I've been sloppy with my home defense. I spread myself too thin and stuff like that. So of all these control objectives, this is probably the easiest one to score. And because in stage 2 the control objectives are so much tougher to score, this is a good time to really start, hammering in on these spending objectives. Of course, the technology objectives are good as well, except for this one. Own 2 tech in each of 4 colors, and that's just ridiculous. That's the Yolnar. Maybe the L1 as well, actually, but yeah. Yeah, but this one, look, own 3 unit upgrade techs. I mean, that's pretty doable for anyone. This is a great one to come out, if we're getting points on. So yeah, in the stage 2, you want to be looking to score these, really, these 6 up here. Getting these 4 is very difficult. Very, very difficult. I generally would not bother. Yeah, by the time you get to stage 2, you want to be just hunkering down and just spending your resources to get your points. Okay, so that's stage 2 done. Let's talk about secret objectives. And again, we'll do the same sort of, well, I might have to do some more categories. Control objective. Yeah, control objective. There's a lot of control objectives that are resource objective, combat objective, control objective, tech objective, combat, tech, control objective, control, like a resource, I guess, combat, resource, combat, control, resource, control. So look at this, there's 20 secret objectives. Almost half of them are control objectives. 25% are combat objectives. And I would arguably link these together, actually. And the remaining 6 are sort of resource/tech objectives. So what this means is, I mean, you want to be taking secret objectives as much as you can regardless, but races that are better at controlling positions are more likely to score secret objectives than other races. That's just a probability speaking, looking at all these secret objectives. It's just probability. Which means overall, in theory, races that are better at controlling locations should be the best races in Twilight Imperium. If we just look at scoring points alone and we ignore everything else, we ignore racial abilities and all that other stuff. Looking purely from an objective point of view, most objectives in the game, public or secret, require you to have board control of some nature. And even these ones, these combat objectives, kind of link into this as well. Because if you are good at controlling territory, that naturally means you're good at taking territory, which means you're good at combats, which means you should be able to do most of these combat objectives as well. So it's really interesting because while I've played many games of Twilight Imperium and won without barely attacking people, looking at these objectives, objectively speaking, the game does try and push people to fight each other, to control certain areas and stuff. There's definitely a lot of push leaning towards that, statistically speaking. So So these are just something to bear in mind when you pick your race and stuff, or when you pick a race that you want to sort of main. That objectively speaking, you either want to lean into a race that's really good at pushing people around, or one that's good at accumulating lots of resources. Something of that nature. Now, leaving all these secret objectives aside, let's talk briefly about the Imperial strategy card. So, I've mentioned this in another video, but with Imperial, more often than not, you, pretty much all the time in fact, you want to be spending on the secondary. You want to be drawing as many secret objectives as you can. The more secret objectives you filter through, the quicker it will be for you to find 3 secret objectives that you can work towards scoring. And secret objectives are, they're going to play a key role towards any victor's success. People who win at Twilight Imperium, more often than not, would have scored at least 2 secret objectives. There's some exceptions, of course, but usually the case. They'd have either gotten a couple of points of Mechatol, 1 or 2, or like 2 points maybe, or some combination of points of Mechatol and secret objectives to make up the difference, to make up the remaining difference from the scored public objectives. So most points will probably come from your public objectives, and then you need to bridge the gap to get to your threshold, and that's done via Imperial points and or scoring secret objectives. So this is why when Imperial is picked, you should be spending off the secondary every time. You should have a very strong reason not to take a secret objective, but it had better be good, because you need points to win the game, and that's what secret objectives do. So you should be drawing them at every opportunity that you are given. And with politics, if your game's going well, by the mid-game, you should be in the position where you are basically rotating between politics and Imperial. In the mid, heading towards the end game, that should be your strategy. You're either taking Imperial. If Imperial's not available, you're taking politics. And if Imperial and politics get picked before you, well, sad times, then you can focus on, I don't know, whatever it is you want to do for that round. Maybe getting more resources for trade in order to score a public objective, or getting more tech, or whatever. But yeah, in the mid to late game, if your game's going well, if you're in a good position, just rotate between Imperial and politics and score those points to win. That's your strategy, and that's what will get you to victory. Okay, I think that just about does it for this video. Hope you've enjoyed it. Mission complete. Signing out.